Have you ever been in a relationship where, despite all the love and attention you gave, something just felt off? Have you ever felt as though no matter what you did, it was never enough for the other person? You might be dealing with a narcissist. But here's the million-dollar question. Do narcissists really care when you leave them? The answer is more complex than you might think, and it's worth exploring in depth. It's easy to assume that narcissists, with their larger-than-life egos and self-centered behavior, are unaffected by others' actions. After all, they seem to have an endless well of self-confidence and pride. But what if the truth is that beneath that inflated sense of self lies an emptiness, so profound that the thought of being abandoned sends them into a whirlwind of emotions? Let's dive deep into this question. Do narcissists actually feel empty inside? And when you leave them, does it really matter to them? To start, imagine you're with someone who always seems to put their needs first, who constantly demands admiration and adoration. This person might seem confident, almost arrogant. But if you look closely, there's something else lurking just beneath the surface, a deep void. This emptiness is the core of narcissism, and it's this void that drives much of their behavior. They crave validation, not because they need praise, but because it temporarily fills the emptiness they feel inside. They need to be seen as important, powerful, and desirable because without this external affirmation, they risk confronting their own deep-rooted feelings of inadequacy. But what happens when you, the source of their validation, decide to leave? Do narcissists care? Do they feel the sting of rejection? The answer is layered, and it's crucial to understand the internal mechanics of a narcissist's psyche. At first glance, it might seem like they don't care at all. Narcissists are often perceived as emotionally distant and unempathetic. They may even act as if your departure is a mere inconvenience, rather than a significant loss. They'll quickly replace you with someone else, or focus on their next source of admiration. However, this surface-level reaction masks the true depth of their emotional world. Beneath their facade, narcissists are often terrified of being left alone, as it means confronting that dark, empty space inside them, the very thing they avoid at all costs. For a narcissist, the fear of abandonment is tied to their fragile sense of self. They rely on external validation to maintain their self-esteem and sense of worth. When you leave, it's not just the loss of a relationship that hurts, it's the loss of their sense of self. This is why narcissists often react with rage, manipulation, or even indifference. They're trying to protect themselves from the overwhelming sense of emptiness that your departure triggers. But here's the catch. Narcissists aren't just scared of being alone. They're scared of being faced with their own inadequacies. When someone leaves them, it forces them to confront a truth they spend most of their lives avoiding, that they're not as perfect or powerful as they want the world to believe. The more important you were to them, the deeper the wound your departure inflicts. This is why narcissists might resort to desperate measures to win you back, even if their methods are manipulative or insincere. It's not because they love you in the traditional sense. It's because your absence threatens their sense of identity. You might be wondering, if they're so scared of being alone, why do they often seem indifferent when you leave? The truth is, narcissists often struggle with true emotional connection. Their relationships are transactional, built on what they can get out of them, rather than genuine mutual affection. This is why, at first, their reactions to abandonment might appear cold or unbothered. However, once the reality of your absence sets in, the internal crisis begins. The emptiness they feel without you might not be immediately visible, but it's there, lurking in the background, pushing them to regain control over their emotions and their environment. So do narcissists care when you leave? Yes, but it's a different kind of care than what you might expect. Their concern is not for you as a person, but for how your departure affects their fragile sense of self. It's a self-preservation instinct, rather than a true emotional attachment. This is why, even if they lash out or act as if they don't care, they might still try to reel you back in, not out of love, but out of a desperate need to fill the emptiness they feel inside. But it's not just about their fear of emptiness. It's about the consequences of being abandoned. Narcissists are often terrified of looking vulnerable or weak, especially in front of others. When someone leaves them, it's not just a personal loss, it's a hit to their carefully curated image. This is why they often go to great lengths to maintain their facade, even if it means pretending that they're fine when they're anything but. The need to be seen as invincible and untouchable often overrides the actual pain they're feeling. Now, you might be wondering why narcissists seem to have such a hard time accepting responsibility for their actions. The truth is that narcissists rarely engage in self-reflection or introspection. Their sense of self is so fragile that admitting they're wrong would mean confronting the core of their insecurities. This is why, even when they're faced with the consequences of their behavior, they often shift blame or deny any wrongdoing. In their world, they can never be the one at fault, because doing so would force them to acknowledge the emptiness inside. But it's not just about how they react when you leave. It's also about how they behave in relationships to begin with. Narcissists often enter relationships with the mindset that they deserve admiration and devotion, but they rarely offer the same in return. They might shower you with attention and affection at first, but once they've secured your loyalty, they may begin to devalue you. This is part of their cycle of idealization, devaluation, and discard, and it's rooted in their inability to form genuine emotional bonds. They may look for new sources of admiration when they feel your love is no longer enough to fill the emptiness inside them. When you leave a narcissist, they might not see it as a loss of love, but as a loss of control. To them, relationships are a means of maintaining power, not an opportunity for emotional connection. Your departure, in their eyes, represents a loss of that power, and it's this sense of loss that triggers their fear. They might become angry, vindictive, or manipulative in an attempt to regain control over the situation. But beneath all of that, they're grappling with the painful realization that their self-worth has been threatened. But do they truly learn from the experience? Unfortunately, the answer is no. At least, not in a way that leads to genuine growth. Narcissists are rarely capable of self-awareness or introspection in the way that's necessary for emotional growth. They might temporarily modify their behavior to win you back or prevent further abandonment, but the core issue, the emptiness inside them, remains unchanged. They'll continue to seek validation from others, always looking for someone or something to fill the void that they can never truly satisfy. So when you leave a narcissist, you might feel as though they've moved on quickly or don't care at all. But in reality, they're likely battling with a complex mixture of emotions. They may try to present themselves as unaffected, but deep down, they're struggling with a loss that goes beyond the end of the relationship. It's a loss of their sense of self, a loss that can never truly be healed by anyone but themselves. In conclusion, narcissists do care when you leave, but not for the reasons you might think. It's not because they love you or miss you in the traditional sense, but because your absence threatens their sense of identity. Their reaction to your departure is rooted in their fear of facing their own emptiness. And while it may seem like they don't care, the truth is that they're consumed by the very thing they fear the most, losing control over their sense of self. If you're currently dealing with a narcissist and are contemplating leaving, it's important to remember that their reaction is not about you. It's about them. Their need for validation is insatiable. And while they might try to manipulate you into staying, it's only because they're terrified of facing the void inside them. Thank you for watching. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth discussions on narcissism and relationships. We'll continue exploring this topic and more, so stay tuned for future videos. Until next time. Have you ever been in a relationship where, despite all the love and attention you gave, something just felt off? Have you ever felt as though no matter what you did, it was never enough for the other person? You might be dealing with a narcissist. But here's the million-dollar question. Do narcissists really care when you leave